Let's talk about books. 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 Hola amigos y amigas, you are now with Jocelyn, and you guessed it, in this video I'm going to be sharing with you 8 books that I highly recommend you read in 2022. But these books, my friends, are timeless. So even if you are watching this 30, 40, 50, 63, 75 years from now, I highly recommend that you stick around and watch this video because you may fall in love with one or more of these books. I carefully hand selected each and every one of them from my little library that I'm building over here. So we got a little bit of business, we got a little bit of inspiration, we got a little bit of spirituality, we got a little bit of healing, we got a little bit of love. So I feel like you will definitely discover at least one book that you are really interested in diving into this year. Last year was a very successful reading year for me, probably the most books I've ever read in my life. And this year, I'd really love to hold even more space for reading and read more books than I did last year. My goal is to read about 20 to 25 books this year, so we'll see. I believe in myself, and if you have somewhat of a similar intention and goal, I believe in you too. And honestly, may we remember that reading truly is a great investment of our time and energy. I don't know if you watched my 22 encouragements for 2022 video that I'll put in the cards here and in the description below, but one of my encouragements for us this year is to really invest in learning, because my friends, our knowledge is one of the greatest assets that we can gift ourselves and then we can gift others. It is an asset that I feel we should aspire to continue to expand, that we should continue to invest in. And books is one way that we can really expand our knowledge, that we can gain new perspectives, that we can exercise our imagination and learn new things from different kinds of authors. Something that I really would love to do and I'm going to do this year is dive into new genres that I normally wouldn't get into, like fiction, to be honest. In fact, I don't even remember the last time I read a fiction book. So if you have some recommendations on fiction books that you feel I will love, that you absolutely recommend, please let me know in the comments below. I would love to know your recommendations as well. But like I said, I have a nice diverse selection of books here, 8 books to be exact, that I think you may love. Like, these are really good books, y'all. So without further ado, let's get into talking about books. In no chronological order, the first book that I'd like to recommend to you is The Surrender Experiment by Michael A. Singer, who became one of my favorite authors in 2021. This book, y'all, is a book that has not escaped my mind since I read it. Every single time I am tested with my patience in this life, every time I'm tested with my faith in trusting the process, in my divine unfoldment, I think about this book, because this book is all about Michael A. Singer sharing his testimony on surrender and how surrendering to life, which, by the way, let's make it clear that surrendering does not equate to giving up. Surrendering equates to not resisting. There's a huge, significant difference there. But Michael A. Singer literally dedicated his life to experimenting with surrender. And this book is all about how this experiment unfolded, what happened in his life. And let me tell you, this book, his testimony, his life and how it was impacted with his willingness to surrender again and again and again in all kinds of life situations will inspire you and motivate you to surrender in your own life. So if you feel and you have been feeling called to surrender, to lean into surrender, to learn more about surrender and how surrender can really change your life in miraculous, brilliant, just amazing, mind-blowing ways, definitely read this book, because it will let you know straight up how surrender really leads you to living just the most surprising, wonderful life. And the success that he ended up experiencing that was beyond his imagination is really just impressive and astonishing. It really is just such a good book, y'all. And so I highly recommend that you get into the surrender experiment, because like I said, ever since I put this book down, ever since I stopped reading it, I just mentally refer back to the proof, the evidence that Michael A. Singer provided us in how surrender really is worthy of experimenting, of practicing, of implementing into our own lives. Again, in no chronological order, the second book that I recommend to you all is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. My friends, no exaggeration, this is probably the most beautiful book I have ever read. And I actually haven't finished reading it. I honestly could have finished reading this whole book in like 1 or 2 sittings, because it's really one of those books that you do not want to put down. But it's such a beautifully written book that I want to savor it. I want to take it all in and really enjoy it, because again, it's so beautifully written. Aside from this being one of the most beautiful books I've ever read, Robin Wall Kimmerer has become one of my favorite authors, just like Michael A. Singer has become one of my favorite authors last year. Robin is just a very poetic writer. So if you enjoy just really good writing, this is a book that you definitely want to get into. But also, if you are Indigenous like myself, if you are getting into learning about your ancestors and you have Indigenous ancestors, then this is one of those books where like every Indigenous descendant person needs to read this book, because the Indigenous wisdom, the Indigenous ways of being, the Indigenous ways of thinking, the Indigenous practices, the Indigenous knowledge that exists in this book is just so awakening, and it really brings you back home to yourself. It brings you back home to your Indigenous ancestors. And we've also got some scientific knowledge in here. We've got some teachings of the plants, because Robin is actually a scientist. They have studied so much in botany, and they are a distinguished teaching professor of environmental biology. And really, it's interesting because she has so much wisdom in the science of plants, in the science of nature, in the science of Mother Earth. But as she has been really reconnecting with her Indigenous wisdom, she has been finding the absence of that poetry that exists in Indigenous ways of seeing the world, ways of connecting with Mother Earth that doesn't exist in science. And so you have this beautiful perspective of a person who really is knowledgeable in science, but is rediscovering herself and has learned so much in the art of her ancestors. So it's, again, a really beautiful book, y'all. Like, really beautiful book. It starts with a story of the Sky Woman, and it has become a story that I definitely want to tell my children, want to tell my grandchildren around like a fire, and have them grow to see and respect and love Mother Earth from this story of Sky Woman. So I can say so much, but y'all, this is such a beautiful book. My third recommendation to you all is Start With Why by Simon Sinek. If you would like to be more purposeful and intentional in your actions, this is a book that you definitely need to read. And also, if you are a creative entrepreneur or just an entrepreneur in general, you have a side hustle, you are creating something of your own from the ground up, this is also a book that every creator needs to read so that you come into your creation with purpose and you really start with why. Like, this is all about really setting the intention of why you are doing what you're doing. And when you come across challenges in your life, when you come across obstacles in the journey of bringing this creation to life, of really watering and nourishing and growing this business, your why, your purpose that you started with is going to keep you going. It's going to keep you motivated. It's going to remind you why you started. And I really love how Simon Sinek broke this down. It's not like boring, and it's not like very like institutional, like textbooky. It's really an approachable, digestible book for everyone. So start with why, y'all. How great leaders inspire everyone to take action. So it's also for those who aspire to be great leaders, because great leaders have great purpose. So again, Start With Why, y'all, is a really good book for those who are invested in being purposeful in this life. The fourth recommendation I have for you all is The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra. This is the easiest read out of all of the books that I'm recommending to you in this video. It's a very small book and it's very, very practical. Like, it's one of those guides, if you will, in attaining success, but in a spiritual, fulfilling, like soul fulfilling way. So if you are someone who is aligning with their passions, aligning with their authentic selves, and really wants to create a life of soul fulfillment, like you are here to listen to your calling, to be of service, and to really be one with your purpose, this is the book that you want to read. And I love its practicality because I refer back to this book very often whenever I feel like I need a reminder of, you know, how I'm going about attaining my success, maintaining my success, how I am approaching my goals, how I am, you know, really remaining centered and grounded in genuine desire, like a soul desire, not an egoic desire to manifest success in my life. Like, I refer back to this book and I can just go back and read the underlined parts that I have in here and read it pretty quickly in one sitting. Just revisit it, get a nice refresher, and feel like I'm regrounded and recentered in fulfilling my dreams, but in a very spiritually aligned, soulfully aligned way. The fifth book is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, who is the creator of Nike. This is one of my favorite books of all time, and that's never going to change. Regardless of how many books I read, this is always going to be one of my favorite books because it's just so inspiring, so motivating, and it's a true story about a brand that we all know. Nike is one of the most well-known, popular, influential brands in the world, and Phil Knight is one of the most influential business executives in the world. And I just love being inspired and motivated by true stories. I love true story books. I love true story films because it just makes the inspiration and the motivation more real, because then it's like relatable. It's very human. It's very like, wow, that's possible for me. They overcame this. They took this risk and look what happened. They made these sacrifices and look what happened. And this whole book of Phil Knight sharing with us on how Nike came to be and all that he had to do to create Nike. It's like you read it and you read these challenges and these obstacles and these situations that he's faced with, and you're like, how in the world is he going to overcome this? Like, there's so many moments in this book where I was like, honestly, like, any other person, so many people would have just quit. They would have just quit when they were faced with this obstacle, quit when they faced this challenge, this just situation. But Phil Knight didn't quit. Like, again and again and again, he faced challenges, and yet he believed in himself and what he was building so much. And look what happened. Like, Nike is just so successful, so influential, and it's just a testimony, really, a testament of what happens when you don't give up. And so this is just one of those books where it's like, man, it's just an affirmation of like, if you really just do it, if you just do it, and you don't give up, and you really believe in yourself, you really believe in this idea you have, in this vision you have, you can make it happen. You can make it happen. So telling you about this book is inspiring me to reread this book, because honestly, like, I cried at the end of this book. You just get so invested in his story, and it made me feel so proud of Phil Knight. Like, I'm so proud of him. So proud of him. Like, I hope I have the honor of meeting him one day just to tell him like, yo, when I read your book, I just felt so invested in your story. And I just want to say I'm so proud of you. Like, congratulations for all you've achieved, because you really deserve it. Like, you read this and you're like, man, you deserve the success. The sixth recommendation is All About Love by Bell Hooks. Pretty sure that I recommended this book in another one of my book recommendation videos here on my channel, but it's a really good book. And Bell Hooks recently transitioned from this life. And so I just wanted to honor Bell Hooks for all that she shared with us in this life, all that she created, and all the ways that she brought us back to our truth and really had us question the aspects of life that weren't in alignment with truth. And this is one of those books where she is critiquing love in a very beautifully analytical way. And so it's just a nice, different perspective on love that you gain from this book. And it also just makes you realize like how influenced we are on our perspective of love by society and by all of these, you know, cultural programmings that we integrate as we grow up, and how important it is that we question these programmings and that we unlearn a lot of these false perceptions of love as we get older. So if you would like to gain a new perspective on love, and you'd like to really just question love in a new way, and would like to align with true love, then All About Love is the book for you. The second to last book recommendation that I have for you all is It Didn't Start With You by Mark Wolin. How inherited family trauma shapes who we are, and how to end the cycle. So what makes this book, this trauma-related book, interesting and unique compared to other trauma-related books, is that Mark Wolin provides moments of reflection throughout the book as he is teaching you how we may have inherited trauma and how that trauma that we've inherited continues to impact our lives. And something that he emphasizes a lot is the usage of our words. So for example, in this chapter, he has a written exercise to investigate your core complaint, and he explains how investigating our complaints will assist us in revealing some of the trauma that we've inherited. And he also like assists you in reflecting on how you may consciously or subconsciously relate to other family members, and how that cycle of trauma is like really just circulating throughout your family. So it's just a really cool book that not only teaches you about trauma, but also assists you in healing that trauma and breaking those cycles of trauma. So I really appreciate Mark Wallen for that. But it can be somewhat of a heavy book, especially if you do engage with the reflective and written prompts that he provides. Like, you're really actually diving into trauma work. So can be heavy, but if you are seeking to dive into that and really start healing in that way, and you'd like to learn how you have inherited family trauma and how that's impacting you and how you can break that cycle personally, this is the book for you. And it also, you know, like it says here, like it didn't start with you. It gives you more grace, and it gives you more compassion for yourself on like, okay, like this didn't start with me. Like this was passed down generations, and I need to really be more graceful in my healing journey. And lastly, but not leastly, we have Atomic Habits by James Clear. Of course, I had to recommend a book, given that it's the new year and we're all coming into this year wanting to create changes in our habits, implement new habits, and really be more mindful of how we're going about our days, how we're investing our time and energy, and if we're investing our time and energy wisely. And this is that book. This is that girl that is coming in to assist you in developing better habits and breaking habits that aren't contributing to your highest potential. So what I love about this book is that it's not just about like, here's why you should have good habits. It's, you know, really guiding you through how to implement good habits and how to break habits that you know are no longer serving you. And throughout the book, James Clear provides graphs. Like, for example, here he's showing us like how to create a good habit, how to create a bad habit, and provides just so much assistance in us implementing habits that really make a difference in our lives and are really impactful. And it's nothing like out of, you know, the extraordinary. It's very simple, it's very practical, it's very approachable. And even just in the title in and of itself, Atomic Habits, like James Clear really emphasizes how it's like the littlest things that really make the biggest difference. So if you are looking to improve your life and be more mindful of your habits and how you're going about your day, then this, my friend, is your book that is going to influence you in the best of ways. And that, my friends, are the 8 books I am highly recommending you read in 2022. But again, like I said, these books are timeless. So regardless of what year you're watching this video, regardless of what time of year you're watching this video, these books are chef's kiss. I really, really do love these books. And the thought of you all reading one or more of these books for the first time is really exciting for me. So if you do end up reading one or more of these books per my recommendation, let me know, because I'd love to know if you do end up walking away from this video feeling inspired to read one of these. And I really do hope that you at least took away one book that is catching your eye. And if y'all have some recommendations for your girl, please let me know in the comments. I really do want to get more into fiction, because I feel like fiction books really exercise our imagination, and I would love more of that. I really want to have more fun with my imagination this year. So if you have some recommendations for your girl, let me know in the comments. If you end up walking away purchasing one of these books and diving into one of these books per my recommendation, let me know in the comments. If you like this video, like this video, and if you're not already subscribed, click subscribe. But without further ado, I look really forward to seeing you all in my next video, and I thank you all so much for being here. Cheers to more reading this year. Love you all. Bye.